So we're going to be continuing 4.7, which is called Peace Out. And whenever it says practice understanding, it's not a new concept. You're just going to take everything that you learned before and then lay it all out. Yes, the test is on Wednesday. Very good. So here, so we're going to, like, all of these things you already know how to do. So we're going to be working on efficiently, accurately, efficient and accurately, just so that you can make all those connections. So we are here and we already finished this first part. And then it says, now do this part. It says graph this. Now, when I looked at the quiz that you guys finished, most of you had this down. So I'm going to show you, let's see, because you guys are allowed to use a graphing calculator. Let me see. Yeah, let's do that. Because you're allowed to use a graphing calculator, I am going to show you using a graphing calculator and how you would use the graphing calculator to do this, okay? All right, so the very first thing that I would do is I would write down all of these functions here. So if you're following along with me, go ahead and start typing them in. If you are not so good at typing into Desmos, this is a good time to practice. So here it's going to be 2 parentheses x minus 2 parentheses minus 6. And then I always just make sure that I type it in correctly because you guys know that I don't mean to do this, but I make small errors and that will cause me to get points being missed. Okay, so you have this huge, like, I don't know if you guys all see this graph here. It's like there's many lines and stuff, but it's clearly not a function, all three of them together. So we got to take pieces and parts and put them together into one function, okay? So when I was teaching this without, like, I'd have my, like, when they didn't have access to graphing calculators, which is, you know, how I used to have to do it, I would teach them and then I would have them highlight the part that makes sense. So according to this, use the red equation when x is between -5 and 2. So I would go up to my red equation and I would take a highlighter and I would highlight from -5 all the way to 2, because this says use it from -5 to 2. So I'd take a highlighter and I'd highlight and I'd follow until I got to 2. Okay, so do you all see how this is going to be that? So essentially what you're doing here on the graphing calculator, you're going to use curly braces and you're basically going to enter this thing right there. So we get -5 less than equal to x less than 2. That's actually not how we read it. That's how we type it. When you say this out loud, you say x is the numbers between is less than 2 and greater than or equal to -5. So it's all of this is what I'm talking about. So imagine me highlighting this, and then sometimes I'd have students erase off that extra part of the red line, right? But because we have graphing technologies, I want you to do this. So can you practice right now typing it into here and here so that you're prepared for your test? Okay, go ahead and practice by typing it in here and here. Okay, so the next little part is you're just going to type these all in. And if you, again, had to do these by hand, no calculator, hopefully it's making sense to you. So x is what? Oops. Okay, so notice here we're only going from 2 to 5, right? Let me scooch this over. So from 2 to 5. Notice right now, if I leave the green function in there, this is not a function because see, it fails the vertical line test because I see it twice. So this is not a function. So that's why this has like another restriction. So I'm going to type in that restriction. So it says 5 is less than or equal to x, which is less than or equal to 10. So I want to go from 5 to 10. So there's my function. Looks like this, right? Looks like this. Good. So that's how you have to graph it. Most of you were able to graph it there. I'm not even going to bother doing that here just because you see it. So maybe what I'll do is I'll take a picture of it so that you guys can use that as a reference, right? So then there you go. So no, not save it. want to copy it and then put it here. Can I do that? Now I'll just move it over. Okay. All right, so let me fix this and then move it over so that way you guys can have reference to it when you're studying. Okay, this next part, it says write an absolute value function for g of x in piecewise form with f of x as one side of the function. So the first time I read this, I was like, what are you talking about? But then if you take your time and read this, it says write an absolute value function. So you're going to write a function and you're going to call it g of x in piecewise form. Piecewise form looks like this with f of x. Oh, here's f of x as one side of the function. Oh, okay. As one side of the function. Does that make sense? So notice it says an absolute value function as opposed to the absolute value function. Do you guys all know that? I know this sounds really dumb, but do you know in math the difference between an and the? An and the. Do you know the difference when math instructions or directions give you an versus the? Do you know the difference, what they're going to ask for? Because it's kind of like a little word and you're like, what's the big deal, Miss Johnson? But it actually makes a big deal. Actually makes a big deal. Anybody know the difference between an and the? Okay. What if I said I need the, what's a good the that I can use? I need the pizza versus I need, and yeah, someone said it in the chat. Ouch. The pizza is the pizza that I'm talking about. There's only one pizza I'm talking about. So if I said, give me the pizza, and according to our conversation that we had before, it would be the burnt cheese pizza from Costco, right? But if I said a pizza, I need a pizza. That's any pizza. Like go to, whatever, Little Caesars or anything like that. Okay. So when it says an absolute value equation or function, there's going to be many answers. So I'm going to just start out my equation. And my equation starts off like this. So it's going to say g of x is equal to, so it's going to say negative x plus 3 minus 1. And then this is the part, like I need this part, and they didn't tell me. So do you see why this is an answer as opposed to the answer? See, this is the inverse. Find the inverse. But here, this is and. Does that make sense? So if someone puts different values here, do you see how it's going to be different? Okay, so let me just show you what we're doing. Let me grab my graphing calculator. Okay, so I'm going to turn these off really quick just so you can see what I'm talking about. So I'm going to graph this guy right here. So negative parentheses x plus 3. And one of you got this, like you understood what was happening. You understood that if this is part of the function, right? If this is one side of the function, how do you get the other side of the function? How do you get the other side of the function? If this is, do you see how this is going to, whenever they say absolute value function, you guys did a great job of this. You said, oh, this is going to be a V shape. Do you see how this is part of the V? Does everybody see how this is part of the V? Yes, everybody sees how this is part of the V. I need the other side of the V. So I'm going to pause it really quick so I can let you think for just a second. So we're looking for the other side of this, the other side of this. So if this is a V right here, if this is the left side, and I don't really know where the right side starts. So someone suggested if this is the left side, the right side should be the same thing, except for just not negative. So someone says, Ms. Johnson, x plus 3 minus 1. And so do you see this V happening here? Does everybody see this V? Okay, now it doesn't have to be minus 1, right? It could be minus 10, right? And then there's your V. Does everybody see that? But the most accessible one is just going to be one guy's positive. Remember, because we talked about this when we first learned this. It would be up one, right one, and up one, left one. Do you guys all see that? So there's my other side. So go ahead and write this part as the second line to this right here. And then you need to decide when we switch from blue to the black. And then you need to figure out what numbers go here. Okay, so first write this out. Second, give me those numbers. So go ahead and do that. What number, while you guys are typing and writing and all the other stuff, so I'm going to write out the other side, which is x plus 3 minus 1. What number are we going to use to switch from blue to black? What number are we going to use to switch from blue to black? What number are we going to use to switch from blue to black? What's the cutoff point? What do you guys got? Can you guys guess at this, please? Tell me what your best guess is. What do you think? What do you guys think? Some of you know this. Come on, come on. Very good, very good. That's exactly what I wanted to see. Very good. So yes, that you can use that number, right? Someone put this number right here. Doesn't that make sense to use that as your cutoff point? Yeah, some of you simplified it out. That's fine too. That's fine. You simplified this out. That's fine. So I'm going to use this -3 as my cutoff point. So I'm going to write x is less than -3, and then down here would be x is greater than or equal to -3. Now, some of you during your quiz the last time did less than and greater than, but you didn't use or designate one of them to be equal to. Now, some of you said, oh, could it be 0? So no, because then it would go like this, right? So if I did x is less than 0 and x is greater than or equal to 0, is that the V that you wanted? Yeah. Somebody said, no, that's not the V that I wanted. I didn't want that V. It needs to look like a V. So if it doesn't look like a V, I need to change this number. So what number am I looking for right here? What number should be right here? Does that make sense? Yes. 1 second. Okay, so we need to make this V. So we need to put in our little brackets here. So what is this number gonna be? So the only thing is I know it comes here. So it's either gonna be the X number or the Y number, the X coordinate or the Y coordinate. Which one should we talk about? Hint, hint. Where's my little guy over here? Oh, there's a lot of hints right here, right? So which number are we gonna be using? Yeah, the X number. Thank you, thank you. So we're gonna go X is less than, let's see, we're going to go x is less than -3, and then we're going to go x is greater than. We're going to copy this right here. Aren't you grateful for copy and paste? I am. So now I'm going to change this to be greater than or equal to. This is where some of you messed up on your test. You didn't put an equal to. And because you didn't put an equal to, I can't zoom in so that you can see what mathematically you're doing. Down here would be an open circle where it doesn't exist, right? And that's not true. So we have to put one of these as equal to. If you don't put one of them, you have technically a hole right there. So imagine that this is like, I don't know. Remember we talked about this being a good roller coaster track? This would be a bad roller coaster track because you would fall in that little hole. Do you want to fall in that little hole? Everyone say no, Ms. Johnson. All right, moving on. So there it is. That is how you make an absolute value function into a piecewise function. Yes? Okay. So here's our second problem. Start with this, graph it. That's not going to be difficult. I can't ask you to graph this because all you're going to do is pull up my best friend Desmos and you're going to plug it in. This is not a big deal. In case you forgot, anybody remember, how do you type in absolute value bars into Desmos? What, what, what key is that there? What key is that? Okay, while you're thinking about what key that is, because if you can't type it, then you're going to be stuck on this problem for your test on Tuesday. So graphing it shouldn't be a problem. The question I generally will ask for this one, yeah, it's the shift. It's the key that's right above enter. So everyone right now, look at your keyboard. You should see that bar on the key right above your enter, and it's shift. Yeah, someone said it's right under your backspace or your delete button. Very good. So let's see. So I can't ask you to graph this on our test because that's just you typing into Desmos. That's not the skill we're working on. But I would ask you, hey, how are the transformations on this? What transformations am I taking on this? What transformations am I making on this? And again, this one, you guys did really, really well. Some of you forgot to tell me the shape of this. That was the only thing. I thought that was weird. You told me right 3, up 5, and it has a slope of 2, but then you forgot to tell me that this is a V shape. So that's the only thing I would say. So is everybody okay with that? Okay. Let me just see if there's anything else, that I want to talk about. Stop it. Let's see. That's okay. Write the equation of the piecewise function. So now you should be able to do this one. Can you actually try that? Can you try B and C? Actually, I think I'm done. I think I'm done with our lesson for today because you actually know how to do everything. So all of the rest of these problems just have you start in a different place and then get all the things that we want. So they want you to be able to go from absolute value to piecewise, or over here from piecewise to absolute value, or from a piece to a piecewise. Here they're making you go from absolute value to piecewise and then find the inverses of those. So I think you guys are all comfortable with this. Let's see. Actually, really quick before we go, can you try this one? Can you go from absolute value to piecewise? So again, when you're doing that, it's going to be, so I don't know. I'm going to make up another letter. I don't know. T of X maybe. I'll do this over here so I have enough room. So T of X is equal to this, right? And then you're going to write 1 and then another one. You're going to write 1 and then another one. And then I need that number. So the last time we did this, like, when we were up here, you guys had a hard time finding this part. So make sure that you're clear on why we're choosing this number. Okay, so I'll just say right now, most of you know that it's going to be 2 parentheses x minus 3 plus 5, and then negative 2 x minus 3 plus 5. My thing is going kind of cuckoo. And then now we just need that value, right? We need the value of where they come together, right? And so then you would just use this. So let's do that together so you guys all see it. So turn these guys off. And then we have here, we got 2 parentheses x minus 3 close plus 5. And then let's just copy this. Negative this. So do y'all see how they come together up there? So I'm going to pull this down over here. Yes. And Ms. Johnson, how do you know you need the blue one and then the red one and not the red one then the blue one? How do you know, looking at this function right here, how do you know I want the V and not the upside down V or the tent? How did you know that? What tells you that here? What tells you that there? Yeah, very good. Someone says, Ms. Johnson, the 2 is positive. Someone else says, hey, Miss Johnson, there's no negative. Very good. So both of you absolutely right. So I do want to take it from here to here. So I need my little things right here. So what am I going to put here? X has to be less than what? Less than what? Uh-oh, I took that out. Sorry. And now you don't know. X is less than what? What number are we using? No worries. Yeah, very good. Someone says, hey, Miss Johnson, it's got to be 3 because that's your X number of where they intersect. So I'm just going to copy this thing again like this. And then take this out. Oops, took it out too much. And then now I'm just going to use my 3. And then put this. And I'm going to go greater than or equal to. And this is not negative. Oops, I did it wrong. I switched them. Negative is blue. So this needs to be less than. And then this needs to be greater. I switched them, guys. There you go. Oh, I put the positive one on top. That's why. I get it now. All right. So hopefully this makes sense. You guys are comfortable with writing piecewise functions. The only other check that we need to do is make sure that we know how to do the inverse. You guys are really strong in inverse the other day. You said, oh, Ms. Johnson, I know how to do this. You switch X, you switch Y, you solve for Y.